Hello students, welcome to this series on entrepreneurship. Today we are going to study the basic problems of business startups in India. Now let's first study the objective of this chapter. The basic objective is to study the problems faced by the startups in India, the challenges and the issues impacting the startup business groups in India. First is money problems. The majority of startups fail due to lack of cash and liquidity. The efficiency of business can be impacted if cash management is not done properly. The scarcity of cash and slow sales can be fatal for business, leading to their closure. Now we talk about entrepreneurship, that when people have a sustainable growth in terms they establish, it is easy to do business. If a business is 70 years old, it is easy because they have lot of management techniques to design the business. But what if a small entrepreneur who has started his business, and how he will manage his cash? The biggest problem which startup face is that the investment and the sales do not coincide or are not coordinated in such a way. If we have sales, then only you can have cash. So this balance, if it is spoiled, it can lead to the closure of the business. So the first initial problem which the startups face is the management of the cash, and the sourcing of the availability of the funds is difficult in India. Poor marketing. The cost associated with marketing and advertising can be expensive if the programs are not focused on the right targets or segments of the markets. The incorrect messaging or publications that don't reach the company's target market can be waste of money, efforts and resources. Now, marketing is a costly procedure. If the message is designed, it involves a cost, and if it is floated in the market where the selection of the target market is not proper, it is waste of efforts. If you are designing a kids product and you are floating your ads on adults, it will be of no use because the target and the selection is wrong. We need to focus on a market which is associated with the product consumption. Then only the marketing effort will be crystallized to turn into sales. And because cost is involved, we need to design the selection in such a way that we put less pressure on marketing techniques of getting into right audiences is needed. That is, if you do lot of advertising and invest lot of money, but it is not with the right target, it is waste. Building trained employees. The entrepreneurs can be successful if good teammates, lawyers and accountants are ready to give reliable assistance. The hiring of trained and loyal employees can be crucial component for success. Now, initially, because these organizations are not very big, having a team of 1000 people, it is not a reality. A startup innovator is a person who basically has a small team, but he must have at least one good lawyer and one accountant who would tell him the legal implications and the cost management aspects to support his business. That is, reliable advice initially of two people is very important for him. Poorly priced services. The big companies obtain products at rock bottom prices because of large quantity of goods purchased. Pricing goods and services at low prices can delay the process of turning profits. They need to design fair prices with excellent services to connect with customers at good locations. Now, because you cannot compete with big companies who have good sourcing techniques, that is, they buy in bulk and they get price advantages. Because you are a small startup, you do not have that price advantage, and if you price your products at a low rate, maybe your sales can increase, but it will not give you that sustainability to scale up your businesses to get into the profits. So, it is better that you price your goods at a fair rate and then design your services with excellent quality at a convenient location to serve the clients. Business model failure. The entrepreneurs think that a creative website and an app with fashionable products and services can attract customers, but it is an expensive task. The cost of acquiring the customer, that is the CAC, is actually higher than the lifetime value of that customer, that is the LTV. Now, the in business innovators who at the initial phase would uh, incorporate lot of fashionable technologies and lot of fancies to their websites, which may not be only a working website, but it is beyond that. You give flashy details and flashy photographs and material to the website and good fashionable apps, but the cost by which you are acquiring the customer is actually very high, because the customer is not committed for a lifetime. So, the cost of acquisition is so high that you will not get the returns in terms of profits for the total process of doing business. Poor management team. A poor management team with weak players who are not focused and talented can impact the strategy design, where products do not get customer acceptance and approval. So, we need to understand this, that unless and until the products are not designed in a correct way, they will not be accepted by the public. Product problems. The companies fail because they are not able to develop innovative products which fulfill the market need. This is a serious strategic problem where there is a failure to achieve product and a market fit. These startups may have designed products which may be innovative. They can be innovative for them, but they are not innovative for the society. So, the strategic misfit between what is needed and what actually is given is a great gap, and this can be a cause of failure. We need to understand the needs and then fill up the need by a product innovation. Choice of social media. Building useful network to leverage for business is needed through accurate media strategy to reach the target users and buyers. The social connections can be designed on LinkedIn groups, Facebook groups and Twitter list according to the needs of the business. Now, when you are making a network, you have to understand where the group is. If you are catering to professionals, you have to link to LinkedIn. If you are catering to a most entertaining crowd and the youngsters, it is the Facebook. And then you have, if you are connecting to politicians and to the administrators, you have to go to the Twitter. So, what is your target group, and according to that the media approach and the strategy has to be decided. Starting a business needs complex procedures. The procedures to start business in India can be complex and difficult without the local knowledge of legal and cultural aspects of the country. The country changes after every 20 kilometers. The language changes, the culture changes. It is difficult to understand the taste and the traditions of the people, which are so diversified in their acceptance of products, colors and ideas. So, understanding business is difficult in India, not only for foreign investors, but also for Indian startups. Dealing with construction permits. Construction permits, they are so costly in India that is you have to pursue it in a detailed way. The multiple activities of obtaining intimation of approval from building proposal office and paying taxes and fees can take around a month. If you are going for a construction of your office for a manufacturing unit, it is difficult in India, because to get the approval for doing a construction of India has to be a kind of a detailed procedure in terms of communication with the local development boards and the local development institutes. Obtaining NOCs. The NOCs must be sought from the authority of the Storm Water and the Drainage Department of India, the Sewerage Department, the Electric Department, the Environmental Department, the Traffic and Coordination Department. Before going for a construction, you need NOCs from all these departments, which is again a tiresome and a difficult job, because you have to deal with each department in a different way, where there is lot of corruption and there is lot of bureaucratic channels before you get a NOC. Getting electricity. The cost of getting electricity in India is high. The number of procedures involved are time constraining. It takes around 8 days to receive an external site inspection. 3 weeks are needed to get externally connected with meter installed and test conducted for installation. That is, a business which is starting up in India would require a lot of time even to get a simple electricity connection. To get acceptance for getting connection and meter would take around a month. So, startup problems for starting a business is not only 1 month, but 1 month for each activity which delays the total project. Registering a property. Registering a property requires lot of legal work with charges. The stamp duty is 5% of the property and 1% charge on the market value of the property incurred at sub-registrar of assurances. The lawyer also charges a high fees. The entrepreneurs need to pay high fees at land and survey office also. So, doing a registry for the property is again not an easy task. 5% of the total property cost is given as a stamp duty and 1% additional is also given as a charge to the government. 1% of the total market value is the charge. So, this is a costly procedure where people try to devalue the market rates of the property and try to give less stamp duty to the government. So, lot of corruption and lot of litigation is involved where the lawyers do charge a high rate as they take the advantage of the kind of the work which they know. Getting credit. The Indian banks have a high rate of interest for giving credit. The collateral needed for security with bank also needs lot of documentation and compliances. First of all, if you get loan from the bank, it is a blessing because everybody is not getting a loan from bank. After you have fulfilled all the compliances for getting a for getting a loan from bank, the rates are going to be very high. Even if the rates are going to high, the collateral which you are giving to the bank also needs lot of scrutiny in terms of valuation, in terms of estimation and in terms of documentation and terms of compliances. It is very difficult to deal with the banking procedure of India, which would again take 2 to 3 months to get any type of loan. Protecting investors and enforcing contracts. The investor protection is not efficient in India, where the Securities and the Exchange Board of India, that is the SEBI, has less ability to enforce a contract for protection of wealth of people. What if we invest in India? You have no board to regulate that our wealth will be managed. You can invest your funds in equity, maybe you lose because the company who is dealing with your funds is a corrupted company and there is no law by which you can stop corruption or those companies can be punished. People take wealth from banks and run away is a very easy choice in India. So, the basic startup problems with the businesses is that the funding is difficult in India because the equity market is not matured, the banking and the financial literacy and the maturity is not of that level where you can be safe to take any kind of loan or insurance in the Indian market from private banks, because the clauses are drafted in such a way that the hidden cost is very high, which is beyond the understanding of the ordinary citizen and also of the lawyers. Even if you take a insurance from any private company in India, so at the time when the claim has to be made, they will pop up with thousands of clauses which were not mentioned, and to get a claim is a very difficult task. It is next to impossible to get claims from private bankers and for private insurance companies in India, because there is no strong regulating authority which can force them. So, the markets are difficult in terms of the maturity of the financial growth of the institutions, at least in the private sector. Paying taxes is difficult. Entrepreneurs give multiple tax payments in 1 year. The corporation tax rate stands at 30%, but companies also incur charges in form of central sales tax, dividend tax, property tax, fuel tax and vehicle tax. So, you are paying plethora of taxes, that is, so many taxes paid increases the cost of business, And when cost of business is so high, how can the startup survive in a market like India, which is very complex, not only in terms of getting approvals and being regulated, but it is also the high amount of money invested, which is not only given to infrastructure aspects, but even the government is acting as a authority which is trying to over exploit people in terms of taking taxation. Trading across borders. Entrepreneurs face several hurdles while importing and exporting goods. Several layers of bureaucracy make it very challenging to move goods efficiently. Companies need to file a long list of documents before moving goods across the borders. Now, moving goods across the borders requires lot of bank guarantees, lot of NOCs, lot of approvals from the ministries, and lot of documentation from export import house, where a ordinary person who is not educated cannot deal with the shipping and the transportation and the warranties and the kinds of the contracts which are involved. You need aid of people who are educated experts of these industries to move your goods outside the borders. Resolving insolvency is difficult. It takes 4.3 years to resolve an insolvency in India. The laborious court system is very slow, where business relations can be harassed. Now, if the company has become insolvent, you cannot declare insolvent because you have to go to the high court, which will take 4 to 5 years to resolve and give at least the dues to the people. So, the if the company is liquidated, how the vendors and the suppliers are who associated can get their money back is a kind of a dream in India. Culture. India is a culture hotbed, and business is more about building relations than presenting figures and sums. This is difficult for investors to understand and respond. Investors need to build relations with local people before traveling to understand the languages and values. Now, here if you want to get your work done through people or even through government departments, it is not on the basis of how much turnovers you have or what is your financial wealth or ability, but is you must have relation with the banking officers or with the people who are in the business and the institutions. Much of the caste and relations are associated. If you have same caste of the people, they will promote you and they will make the things easy. But if you have different caste people, the cultural variations is so difficult that the communication and the documentation of papers takes a long time to get approvals. Now, let us study another problem, that is lack of funding for social business ventures. Social business ventures evolve through lack of funding. Now, entrepreneurs find it difficult to business because loans and equity financing is not available for social ventures. Now, social ventures, like if people start a project to get into the upliftment and development of the society in terms of giving food, nutrition or services of education to people through the entrepreneurial efforts with minimum profits are also difficult in India, because if there are no profits and there is not a good balance sheet, is people do not get funding from the banks unless and until the projects are financially viable. So, the social ventures do not find a market and do not find a financial grant from the banking institutions to promote their projects in the market. Social entrepreneurship is a form of philanthropy where young entrepreneurs who have a good family background and good education want to indulge in creating organizations for their name and fame. Now, components for creating social enterprises need to relate to the understanding of problem, designing of sustainable solutions and creating a social change in society. There are social leaders who want to associate with a movement of giving good knowledge or creating digital content or even to build applications or creating their own patents. But this is difficult in India because the young entrepreneurs who have a good family background and have knowledge, they do not get a platform or they do not get a government support that they can work where the credibility is generally judged and established. So, the markets in terms of only finance and only in terms of profits and figures are important in India. The projects which are floated have to have quantitative implication in terms of growth and in terms of employment, but generally problems associated with intangible wealth of creating social capital, of softness in terms of improving the quality of life, for giving good values is not a concern with the government, and there is no platform where you can work for creativity, for satisfaction and for designs. Maybe it is for painting or it is for art, culture. There are less organizations who are supporting people who have passion to do good work. Now, difficulty in designing sustainable designs. The environmental board has no clear guidelines for business houses. The products are rejected by consumers because of negative impacts given to the environment. Now, the environmental board established in India, which is under the constitution of the government of India, but the guidelines are not proper. That is, there is always a gap. And when an industry is developed and they give products to the people, but because of the negative impact of the products, those projects are rejected by people or even the government is banning. Sometimes our industry reaches a maturity stage where a destination gains identity, and after that the environmental board comes into action of realizing that lot of pollution is there, and then they ban the industry. So, if before giving permissions, if the environmental boards do a exercise, it will be lot of saving of resources which are wasted in establishing industry and then banning and ruining the industry. So, that is like there are a lot of regulatory lacunas which are forcing businesses to go out of India. We have intelligent people who have done good work in foreign markets, but if the market was favorable, if the regulation was good, these investors would have invested funds in the markets. Now, let us study the summary of this lecture. The business startups face problems in society to create and build empires. Lot of efforts and resources are wasted when good startups face problems, which leads to their shutdown. It is not only an individual loss, but the country also loses options to create employment and improve GDP for higher growth. So, startup problem is not only an individual problem, it is a country's problem. If startup fails, that means ideas fail. If startup fails, that means innovation see a death. If startup fails, that means it is an end to creativity. So, we should be more cautious that people who have entered the markets should be given a favorable environment and a favorable growth and favorable fundings, so that their ideas and creativity can have a life to see and grow. Thank you, students.